So, what is your experience with hypnosis? Like, have you ever had
Mm.
hypnosis before? And if you have, what did it do to you?
My experience with it seems to be more of just like reading about it. I haven't had it done. Um, I've seen it at a magic show, and I've looked into it because I thought it was fascinating how some people could sort of use that as a tool to help reprogram deeper thought patterns and belief systems within themselves.
Yeah, like hypnosis is it's not spoken about enough. Like it literally can change someone's brain completely. It can take them out of trauma, take them out of depression, anxiety. It can make them believe they're God and invincible, and they can create a massive business. They can find love. You literally can think, what do you want to be like? And the hypnosis can take that information and reprogram your brain, and you become that person. And it's rare. Like psychics are more, I'd say, more common than hypnotists. But hypnotists have essentially more power than psychics because hypnosis can change your brain, whereas a psychic just tunes into what your brain is at right now, whereas a hypnosis can change it. I think hypnosis is an incredible tool and anyone can do it. It's so easy. You just have to essentially control them with your words, but in a good way rather than the bad way. And you literally can change them to be any person you want. Like I had a hypnosis person in my head. So I know this hypnosis person online. It's called Darren Brown. He's very, very good. And so I was imagining his voice talking to me. So rather than the voice of God, the voice of your parents or whatever telling you, it was his voice. And so I was imagining what he would say to me and I was following that. So I got him to hypnotize me in my own head without him having to be there because it's just tuning into the voice of a third person and then following that command is really powerful. Anyone can do it. It's changed
The
my life.
power of your mind is extraordinary. That's
Tell
pretty
me,
awesome. Now I feel like I want to look this guy up as well.
Darren Brown. So he's
Yeah.
a UK hypnosis. He doesn't call himself a psychic because he understands that it's more than just psychic ability. There's loads of other
Mm.
things, but he literally can put anything in your head, take anything out your head. He can make you. He made somebody rob a bank. He made somebody shoot somebody because he made him believe that it was real. Like there was this Mexican thing. This person in America hated Mexicans coming over the border, and so he hypnotized this person to essentially love this Mexican person, take a bullet for him, right? So he went from hating this Mexican to taking a bullet for this person, and then Darren came out at the end and said, it's okay, it's a fake blood thing, don't worry." So he changed that person's mindset of hating Mexican people to taking a bullet for this person, and he had a family and everything. He made this person believe he was in a zombie apocalypse. And he woke up in like this apocalypse thing. And Darren Brown came into the room whilst he was playing a game, hypnotized him, and then took him to like this scene and the set. He made somebody, um, remote viewing. He made this person pick up a painting of a picture being drawn miles and miles away. He really is incredible. He holds a light bulb in that
So
person's hand and it smashes.
he hypnotized them to do remote viewing.
So yeah, so imagine you put someone in a state of their mindset. So as you know, anyone can do all this stuff, but they don't know how to. So Darren Brown will coach
Mm-hmm.
them, teach them. Say, look, so you're going to focus. Just imagine seeing the image vivid, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as if you can actually see it in your head. And they start to go into their mindset, and they start to see it and visualize it, and they create that feeling, and they go into a meditative state. He essentially puts them in the perfect frequency in order for them to do what he wants them to do, and he does it every single time. He can predict your pin number, your bank card. He's amazing, and he doesn't say he's a psychic because he knows that it's law of attraction and other factors. um he really is incredible. He did a show once which I actually went to see live, and obviously as a producer of a show, you need to have your show divided into sections to know what's happening. And each time he does the same show, right? And he goes in the audience and he takes a random person's phone number and then he does all other stuff around that. And the number he has, based on the maths equation and the person, how old they were when they died and what their dog's name was called into number order, it was the exact number of the phone number of somebody else in the audience. Stuff like that. He does the same formula every night, but the numbers, they're different, all the same, and it always adds up. So the thing about we're all connected in terms of energy, well, we are all connected. How you can just pick anyone and get the same outcome. Like he has balloons and he puts things in a balloon and he says, hold on to that. And there's something in that balloon. And just by going around the audience, they say certain things. They think of a car, a certain number. He writes that car a number down and it always equals to what was in the balloon. So everyone thinks that their thoughts are unique
Right.
or they're
Mm-hmm.
random, but they're all controlled. It's like they're all controlled from another energy, the TV, the media, what your friends said, what your friends thinking about. It's nothing to do with so your five senses will only, you'll only think about your things at your five senses, what you see, hear, touch, and smell, whatever. But anything else, it's another dimension. It's a whole new world out there.
That's neat. I would be interested to hear about him in greater depth. I find that sort of thing really fascinating. I kind of woke up to latent psychic abilities that I didn't expect to happen. It was sort of an interesting journey. But it's been an interesting couple of years.
So tell me some stories about this psychic ability, because when I was re-enlightened at 21, I had this psychic ability as well. My energy became so high and vibrant. I wasn't speaking to anyone, just my own voice in my head, which increased my energy, and then a meditation kicked in, which projected the voice, the energy coming off, and I became in tune to everything, and I could think of anyone and see them. I was, I literally, I was in the future. I knew what the future was going to happen because I was already there in my mind, and I would say now what was going to happen, and then that person would call me, and then we'd go out to that restaurant I said in my head, because I understood that the future is controlled by energy, and if you just like go up the frequency scale, like Facebook algorithm, they say, do you know this person? You know that this person's connected, that this person's connected, which means you're probably going to see that person at some point. So if Facebook comes up with a mutual friend, you are going to see that person. So reach out to them right now. So it's not a coincidence how Facebook said, do you know this person? Because you've understood their algorithm is energy. And the energy frequencies all merge together at some point. Like we are the same energy. We attract more of the same energy, like your household right now. You're just constantly moving into energy. So anyway, yeah, talk to me about your psychic stories about what happened.
See how good of a storyteller I am today. Um, so, have you heard of like twin flame journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I found my twin flame.
Yeah. So I didn't know much about that till it was happening, and it was they who said like, "Oh, have you heard of twin flame?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is." And then I was like, "I feel more like a potential soulmate energy," at the time because but we went on like a series of 4 dates, and then 6 months later, like another series of 4 days, but the synchronicities and what opened up like when we met was like first my chakras like this this tube of like crystalline structure just like opens up and I can visualize it. I'm walking into like a place to meet somebody and I'm like, what just happened? And I was like decided, well, I'll meet this. I like see I want to see what this is. And for me, I would get these incredibly visceral, so you don't always have to close your eyes. You probably know that. But it's almost like color strips and neon colors of lighting, but it would be a perfect area, or like in a meditation when I was in a house that had black mold, and it was actually the house in a deep meditation that told me it was that I was dying. There was yeah, some people I've told that full story to, and other people I don't. I just say that I was dying of black mold because it's harder for comprehension of like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I was taken out of my body and traveling through like the parts of the house and to the basement, and it took me to this particular object, and then like these particles in the air, and I said, this is killing you. And I was like, well, shit. Excuse, I don't know if that's, But
No,
so,
swear as much as you want.
all right. So that sort of heightened my drive to deal with it. The landlord hadn't been dealing with it for years, and I would do reminders or get like these boosts of energy to try and get something done about it. And then I'd just be like, well, I'll just do enough cleaning and get back to my work, because it was just so much work to try and get him to do something. And I sort of like created this stuck mentality in the house, and in that dynamic. And the twin flame thing sort of knocked me into like, wait, why am I here in this house? Like, it just sort of occurred to me that she couldn't see who I was. And I was like, I'm not fully standing into my soul calling. And it woke me up like that. I haven't talked to her in a year or whatever, but it was very fascinating. And we didn't even talk about any of this. Sort of a circumstance of how I learned how you could send energy was like, I was feeling like really excited on just sexually. There's all this energy, and I could viscerally like, but I always had a vivid imagination, and I didn't understand when I was a kid that that was a psychic ability. It was like, it's imagination. And so here I was like, wow, I can like picture her sitting in a bar. I don't know why she's sitting, but whatever it is, and I could picture another. But I kept feeling all this energy, and I kept like, and I was like practicing my flamenco dancing to work on it. And even though I was so I know that I was like sending all this energy because you can see it. But I believe that's the night that, because we had a date the next day, and that's what got me kind of excited. And I was like, I need to work out this energy. And she ended up sleeping with that friend, and then the next day saying, oh, something came up. I want to see what this is. Maybe we could be friends. And that was an interesting moment when I was like, oh shit, that was real. Like, she was at a place. She was with that friend. I was sending my sexual energy all the way to them. It wasn't imagined. And that was like a really fascinating way to learn that. So I started to try and figure out, like, research online, like, more about it. I felt like it was interesting to try and figure out what was happening, because a lot of the people in my life at the time were just like, well, what drugs were you on, or that kind of mentality about it. And the more and more I was meditating every day, and the more and more I got into this sort of esoteric state of mind, the more and more people thought it was drugs. But I did, I had there were festivals that I did things. So I think that it sort of was harder for them to break those two apart in my journey.
Yeah, so based on what you're saying, if you had a question that you would type into Google, okay, to find deeper answers, what question would that be? And I'll try and answer it based on my experience and situation, and see if it kind of aligns, or if it's the same thing, or if I can translate that to energy terms, because everything always translates back to energy, I've realized. So if you had a question that you put into Google about your situation, what would it be? And then I'll answer it as if I was Google.
Oh, okay. I got you. I thought you were going to ask it. Oh, okay. So I thought about ways that other people would, because I wanted to make a video myself that said, like, am I psychic or am I going crazy? Just fun, like, little things like that. I didn't type that. I just typed in, like, like, energy, energy work, psychic abilities, mediumship, channeling, hearing guides, seeing guides and things like that. But I would try to find and type in a person so that it would have like another name to it, if that makes any sense. Because I felt a little like I was in the middle of the ocean, and it was easier to be like, to add, boat to the search. So
Yeah,
so
so
that I
you
felt
would.
like I knew what might be in that container.
No, it's true because like everything you see and hear in your head on that journey is relevant, and you have to keep following the patterns. So if you think of a boat, you go to a boat shop, for example, and then when you get there, you meet somebody, and then you see a picture of a boat, and then you go into your car, and an advert says a boat, and you it's all about following the patterns, and I call
Mm-hmm.
that pattern walking through hell to get to heaven, right? So you just have to keep linking all the numbers, angel numbers, keep following the numbers. It gets down to zero, and zero is the reset, as in life starts again. But all the numbers are is just making you more aware, so you become more aware, and it's just simply getting you out your head and becoming aware. Like I would see feathers. It was a spirit guide leaving me a feather. Really, it was just a
Mm-hmm.
pigeon just fluffing its feathers, right? And there was no spirit guide or angel or whatever for me. I believed it was. But then you look back and it's like, okay, it was about me going online, seeing that it means something, that you're being looked after and that good things are going to come. So now I would expect good things to come and I would be more aware, which basically it's all about making you more aware because you've been in your head your whole life trying to work stuff out. And now it's time to go out your head with your
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and be aware. Whereas most people, they don't ever become aware. They never get that awakening. So they're always in their head. So for someone who's half and half, you ask yourself, why is this always happening? Why am I like this? Why am I like that? Why does this happen? And everyone else doesn't understand. But we are part of that. We are part of the two worlds. Most people are just here forever, but we're on the middle. Hang on, we're in the middle, right? So now it's like, well, we can have that and that. So you have to remove yourself from these people because they will never understand because you are half. And it's like, right, because I'm half and half, I can choose. I can choose this, keep thinking forever, or just not think and have a shitty life. Or I can completely think and then come out and take action, and that doesn't exist anymore. On the topic about are you crazy or is it psychic ability? Last night I did a podcast on my walk for half an hour, and it was called Speaking to My Dead Grandma's Ghost at 20 for 8 months because I depended on my dad for knowledge and everything my whole life. And at that time, he had to let me find my own self because the more I depended on him, the more I needed him. But I was getting older, and I realized you just have to cut ties. That's essentially the same as the bird leaving the nest to get its own worm when the mother chick doesn't come back with a worm. And so I started to speak to my dead grandma's spirit because I had no friends because I said goodbye to them all. They didn't understand me. I was in another world. So I had no one. So my door opened one time and I made myself believe that it was grandma came for me, her ghost, right? Door opened. Okay, she's here. And for the next 8 months, I spent my life speaking to the voice in my head, call it God, higher self, grandma. Grandma essentially took place with my father, the third person voice. So I'd ask, should I do this? Why does this happen? And the voice would say, well, this happens because you're different. Why am I different, Grandma? Because people, they just go to their school, they go to their work, and they just live and they do the same monotonous shit all the time. And, you're an entrepreneur and you're going to create good things. And it's like, okay, so you learn to follow the voice in your head. To anyone else, I was possessed, schizophrenic, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was speaking to the voice in my head. No one's there. No, Grandma is here. She's here. Look, she'll make the TV click, and then the TV would click, and they'll say, "Oh, it's just the TV clicking." It's like, no, it's not just the fucking TV clicking. I made that happen with my mind. Grandma clicked, right? So I was on this journey for 8 months, and speaking to what I believed my grandma was there. Like I was speaking, I could see, like to me, she was there, right? No one else understood because I was thinking about ghosts and past life, and then this happened. Cut long story short, everyone called me crazy. And the more they called me crazy, the more I spoke to the voice in my head, the more energy I admitted, the more powerful I became, more psychic ability I had, because my energy just kept raising. And then, eventually, over time, I'd asked all the questions, I'd found the answers I was looking for. And then she ended up, the voice in my head started to calm down, which is like the meditation. She was outside firing, which is the voice, so there's less of a voice. And then before you know it, I had all this amazing knowledge. I could see why they called me crazy and how they never understood. And as you said, is it crazy or is it spiritual awakening? It's the same as Jim Carrey, and Kanye West, and Russell Brand. All this brain activity trying to convince the world that you don't understand, and then you realise the world's never going to understand. And then you have a breakdown from exhaustion, like Kanye did, and Russell did, and Jim Carrey did. You call him crazy, and then you learn, okay, they are going to think I'm crazy. I can't just keep projecting that same knowledge out there. They don't get it. Come within yourself, be calm, speak to those who are listening who get it, and those who don't, just speak to them as a friend down the pub. You don't have to teach everyone all the time. And it's not crazy, it's psychic ability, but it's learning why I'm like this, why everyone else is like that, and understanding through knowledge of how to react moving forward. Because when someone calls you crazy and you're not, first thing you do is you go, I'm not fucking crazy. And they go, cool, you're fucking crazy. Look at you getting mad. You're possessed. Your eyes are like, So it's a vicious circle. I had to understand how to deal with people who didn't get it.
That's really fascinating. And so when you, there was a bit of a hiccup, but I'm curious about how you now view the speaking to your grandmother or source or voice of God. Like, do you believe that was you interpreting an energy and a guidance, or you creating that? And do you believe that you do have guidance?
So back then it was grandma's spirit in terms of the spirit world, angel guides, right? They were guiding me, right? Looking back now, it was nothing more than just my own neurons firing up, hearing that sound as a third person. My father used to speak to me in the third person. I had no one. Grandma came. She spoke in the third person. It was nothing more than just me believing that it was her. And really, it was just me speaking to myself rather than depending on someone else for knowledge, like a teacher or
Mm-hmm.
the doctor. It was me working out my own shit myself. So sadly, I used to question everything and I kept questioning everything. I couldn't just be like, grandma's here and that's it. It was, is she really here? And I find flaws, right? So for me, no spirit guides, no angels, no God, no afterlife, no reincarnation. I went through the whole process of believing it all, and I kept questioning in stuff, and I found flaws. And unfortunately, as much as I would like to believe that she was here or that she's here now looking after me, I believe I'm here by myself. It's up to me to do the shit that I want to do and take responsibility for me without waiting for anyone to do miracles or waiting for
Mm.
stuff to get done. What was the other question?
I think you answered it. I just that's interesting, because I do think that it's our responsibility to take the necessary steps. That just sitting here and asking for a path to come before me, I would still need to take steps even if a path came before me. Or and in that realm, that I tapped into the frequency of a new way of being and started to behave and act towards that, set that course instead for my life. But so with the black mold for me, I had a near death experience, and the voice in my head kept saying, go buy a mask, like the day before it happened. I was like, fine, go buy a mask, like, calm down. So I had this mask with me, and in retrospect, I thought I was going to sleep, but I never really go to sleep like this. So I was passing out, and the both blow up mattresses had popped, so they were flat, and it's like all the signs of getting out of the house were there. But I was like, I'll just slowly lie down on my yoga mat. I'm too tired to, and when I woke up to voices I recognized in my past who were no longer alive. And they weren't afraid for me, but they were yelling. They're like, wake up, you're dying. Wake up, you're dying. And I was like, what is happening? There's this weird transition out. And there was lots of like, it didn't just look like this dimension I was in. So making sense, like there's lots of action in terms of colors and what, but also to be fair, I look down, I can't inhale, like nothing's happening. My nails are blue, my skin is white, and there's like this cold sweat all over me. And in my mind, I was like, oh, fuck no. Like, fuck no, I'm not dying. I'm not dying like this. This is stupid. Where's that fucking mask? You know, and I get up and I stumble to get this mask on, and I fall into like the Bay Area to like get up some windows, and then I pass out again. And I come to a few hours later, and I text a friend who's like, "Oh shit's serious. Let me send somebody else up because I'm at work," kind of thing. And another awesome human came all the way out there to help me. Um, and I was just sitting outside at that point, but I should have fallen asleep on the porch. That was the image that came to my head before I was like, why would I just sleep outside on the porch? But it's like, would have been a better outcome, I think. Well, who knows? Who knows if it would have been better. So hearing all those voices like coach me through that experience was interesting. So not that long ago, like within a couple months, I was talking to my mom. And I said, "So, Mom, you know how I hear frequencies? I hear music, and I've always been writing music." And I was like, "But, you know, not that long ago, the frequencies got more specific. Like, I can hear more specific things. I can hear like choirs of angels. They'll be singing things. Sometimes they'll just be singing after my thought." And I'm like, "Guys, I don't want to hear my thoughts repeated back. Like, she doesn't want to hear, you know, like it's like ridiculous sometimes. I'm like, oh my god." But it can be really beautiful. I'm gonna make a musical about this whole experience because it's funny. And anyhow, so I said to her that, and she said something that was interesting to me. She said, "You know, when you were little, I could always tell that you were having conversations with, and you were seeing and hearing things that weren't there." And in my mind, I thought, well, I don't know how this fucking works, so I'm just gonna leave her there to do that. Like, she just didn't put any input at all, which is cool. I've heard a lot of people get down paths that are much more traumatic on that front because someone's aggressive or convinced of mental illness, or and not to disparage what that journey is, or having a mental illness or anything. Just that I sometimes believe that there might be psychic abilities that are called a mental illness.
Mental illness is spiritual awakening. It's as simple as that. I was on a journey of being put on meds, being called psychotic because I was hearing all these voices, versus these voices are saying that life isn't what it seems. But how do you tell that doctor who's been following his textbook of bollocks that was taught from a university professor 50 years ago, that was taught from somebody who worked it out essentially 50 years ago, right? How do you explain that? And they have the powers to essentially put medication on you or force you to be locked up, for example. That's what I'm trying to say. You need to understand that people don't get it. You can't just keep putting out your shit. You have to understand how they see it and how...
Almost every friend I've had before this time, like, it was just like it was an interesting shift out. So I didn't mean to interrupt. However, did you want to finish your...
No. It's like I had Tourette's my whole life, yeah. So when I was 10 years old, I went on medication. It's called Risperdal, which has for schizophrenia. Like, stop the voices because the twitching slows down when you slow down the brain activity. And the twitching for me was my brain trying to work stuff out. Every time I went on medication, it slowed down my ability to think, and my thoughts just went round in my head for 10 years. I never processed any thoughts for 10 years later until I learned all this stuff on YouTube. Law of attraction, power of the mind. Came off the meds literally just like that, and I had my awakening. And then through working out all the stuff I'd ever wanted to work out, the twitching stopped. So the Tourette's disappeared over like a few weeks. It was a medication, my inability to work things out. That's why I was twitching. And the more I started to think about stuff in a deeper level, the more I was twitching, because now I had my energy back and I was trying to work out stuff that I just couldn't work out. And I had to spend like 10 hours in my head thinking about something and I'm twitching the fuck out of myself, right? But then at the end of the night, I worked it out. And the next day I was in meditation. There's nothing to work out because I worked it out. And the medication just slowed the brain down. And so when it came off the medication and you start hearing these voices and this is going to happen, making predictions, and I'm going to see this person. Oh, they're close. See, I told you. See, I told you we're going to see this person. This is going to happen. The light's going to go green. They're like, what the fuck is going on? He needs to go back on his meds. So they got the doctors round for assessments and he needs to go back on his meds and shit. Everyone, neighbours and family, relatives, needs to take the meds. Needs to take the meds. Everyone's taking meds, fucking meds. Okay, I realised that the only way I'm going to get these doctors not to put me back on the meds is to act like I am sane, rather than just being me, because being me essentially to them would be insanity. Speaking about spirituality, power of the mind, universe, I think this fucking guy's psychotic. He's having a psychotic episode. He's come off his meds, right? I had to act like I was normal. So I said, hi, come in, want a cup of tea? This person's supposed to be crazy. Anyway, never mind, okay. And I was acting like I was in control, right? And so they wanted to go back in the past so they could link past trauma and past things and then put together a little word for it. Oh, schizophrenia, all Tourette's, all OCD, all Asperger's, all autism. It's like, my friend, I am present right now. The old me is not me right now. If I had cancer 50 years ago and you look on my medical report, had cancer, are you going to presume I have cancer now? No. So if I had Tourette's 20 years ago, heart disease 20 years ago, it doesn't mean I have it now. But in that industry, mental illness is there forever. You've always got OCD forever, Tourette's forever. I was told that Tourette's doesn't disappear. You're there forever. Statistically, everyone who has Tourette's and these problems go on these meds forever, and it doesn't disappear. It's only with the knowledge I had that I just came off it overnight, which pretty much no one would ever recommend, ever. So I didn't say the past. They said, so tell me what happened in the past. What happened growing up? What happened last week? My friend, I'm present. Look at me and assess me right now. Ask me questions in the present. Because if you go back in time, everyone's got problems. Everyone had depression when they were 4, anxiety when they were at school, cancer when they were growing up and shit like that. There's always problems, but it's about now. And to cut long story short, they couldn't find a problem right now because there wasn't a fucking problem. There wasn't a goddamn problem, right? And then they left. And then they had another set of people come around, like they're called the crisis team. The psychotherapy person comes around and the crisis person, and then the doctor and like the assessor, the therapist, they all like work off each other's what I call book of bollocks, right? Oh, he's twitching. He must have Tourette's. Here are the options: therapy, medication, injection. Or we'll give him that one, right? No, get off me. We need to inject him. He assaulted a doctor. Put him in the mental hospital. Medication suppresses your brain, right? So yeah, that's so I knew that what they were looking for. They were looking for me to come up with the things in their glossary for them to look through and see, okay, well, this is this. Don't give them the opportunity. They've got nothing. And then they left. And then time went on. And that was it. I'd worked at all my shit. There's no voice in my head anymore. There was no twitching. I twitch now a little bit because my brain is active. It's charging. But when I sleep 9 hours straight last night. 9 hours straight. I sleep amazing. I go to bed within a few minutes and I sleep all the way through for 9 hours. So sleeping is no problem because it's all to do with that on and off switch, which I can now control. I don't think anymore. I think about the stuff I want to think about, but I've done all my thinking. Afterlife, spirits, past life, God. You know, it's certain things that most people think about. Is there aliens, chicken or the egg? Once you've thought about these main things, now all you have to think about is, I need to pick my kids up from school, or I need to go shopping, or I need to do this, I need to do that. And that's just constant daily activity. But there's always the voice in your head that everyone has, and they put it to bed because their friends are like, what are you on about? You're crazy. But that voice kicks in again because it's like, no, I need to know. I need to know what happens when you die. My friends are saying, don't worry about it, or you're crazy. I need to work this shit out. And then you become crazy because you're trying to work this out, and they just want you to party or whatever. That's why it's very important for people to understand that the voice is the mental illness, is the spiritual awakening. Is you questioning stuff outside of your surroundings. You're made up of all the knowledge you're around and what you see, what you hear, and what they say and talk about. And most people who are just weak are being charged by this energy, and that's all they think about is, let's go to the pub, let's do this, let's do that. But the person who's made up of both realms, because their parents were enlightened or whatever, you are now made up of those two energies, and now you have that extra voice that this is more to life. There's more to life, and you're constantly like fighting between your friends pulling you back here and going traveling and dude, take a mushroom, man, and like trying to work out this shit. And it's this battle of shut up, voice, take a drug to calm it down. It just makes you worse, and then you're constantly going from what I call enlightenment, depression, and you have to go the whole way. Otherwise, you end up killing yourself because you're trapped. That's that trap part. And for me, I let go of all my friends, stopped listening to neighbours and parents and everyone and the doctor, came off the meds, spoke to the voice in my head for 3 weeks constantly. Okay, I mean, it was the best time of my life. Spiritual awakening, right? It all happened so quick, but best time of my life because now I've got to live in the real world, which is now I've got to make money. As in, I can't just live on this spiritual journey like a monk in the forest. I've now got to make money, which means I've got to think about stuff, which means my brain's going to be active, which means I'm going to be twitching, which means spots come back because all to do with stress and pressure. Again, and my acne, had bad acne, it all went when I came off the meds because of the stress that I was under through thinking. And it all happened at once. Spots went, Tourette's went, everything happened at once. My body, I had rashes all over me because it was my body releasing all this toxic, like just had rashes all over myself. Armpits, my groin area. It was just, I was like sweating out all this toxins and energy. And it was amazing. So yeah, mental illness is a spiritual awakening every single time. People need to have meditation, not medication. Meditation gets you through. Medication provides a temporary solution to the problem you're experiencing. And that's why people on depression and anxiety and sleeping pills, they always have those problems forever because unless you deal with it, it's still going to be there. Some people are on like depression and anxiety pills for 10 years because they've not dealt with it. It's like, well, you have to deal with it. It's still going to be there. Same as my Tourette's. It would still be here now because I'd be twitching so much more because I'd have so much shit to work out. Take a tablet, you're twitching. Oh, okay. Back in that mindset.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I stopped taking all my meds like overnight, and everyone was like, "You didn't like wean it off," and because I'd done in the past when I had stuff, I weaned it off, but I didn't know how to explain to them the experience that shifted it for me. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was different than like okay, I'll slowly stop this sort of so that the chemical and receivers and my body aren't just suddenly like, what the hell? They're just like little puppet hands now, but all the cells. So
that's what I did. That's why I was enlightened in 3 weeks. I just stopped taking it for 10 years. I just stopped taking it. That's why I had all this awakening so quick because I didn't go down gradually. They always said you should come off it gradually. I just stopped. And that's why I went from 0 to fucking million.
I stopped, and it was interesting too because for me, my experience was hearing a command from the 11th astral plane. Now, I didn't know what that meant at this time, but I knew the frequency that I was hearing, and it was very like I just tuned in, and I actually like got down on my knees, like I was praying, and it was like I said, I didn't know this was real. I mean, I've been looking into it and hoping it was real, and maybe it was real, and I had this experience where like this was real, but gosh, I didn't know. I didn't know that this, and so it's sorry, so that sort of coming in, and saying like, stop taking everything, don't, you know, clean your body, because I'd been trying to clean my diet entirely, but I was still taking meds and still occasionally dabbling, just so, and it was just like, just stop everything. We need you. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, I got to get rid of all this stuff. It was like, but it did. I stopped after that. And I think people had a hard time comprehending that. especially still being on a spiritual journey and being like, I can hear angels singing and people are pretty concerned. My dad is very sweet, so he wasn't pushy, but he did say like, "Oh, I think you need meds and a psychiatrist." And I said, "Who in our family has looked into their mind more than me?" I was like, "I've seen a type of therapist once a week for like the past 10, 12 years at this point. I've read, 50 something book just on the mind, 50 books on meditation and becoming one with your mind. I've gone to events and things just to try and do that more. So I've studied, so I was like, you're the opinion of thinking that somebody who has who has studied in a system that has allowed them to assign me what is necessary in a medication, like they can somehow assess me in 15 minutes more than I could after a lifetime of studying me. And each time I run into or perceiving a block, being like, oh, what's that? And opening the door or shifting it or saying like, that's a mindset I don't need. I can. So it was interesting to me that, again, we're still functioning in a system where there's more credence given to the degree, even if the degree doesn't pertain to a situation at all.
So a spiritual awakening without knowledge is a death sentence. What I mean by that is you'd be called crazy. You go to a psychiatric ward and you'll be sectioned and you'll end up banging your head against the wall and killing yourself, right? A spiritual awakening with knowledge of understanding what's going on and hearing that voice commanding, saying, come off your meds, not because you're fucking crazy, just because you know that it's the meds that are stopping you from being more alert. So again, trying to tell your parents that you've not just stopped because you heard somebody say you should come off it. Okay, you have understanding through knowledge of those textbooks, like why you're coming off the meds, what's going to happen, what isn't going to happen, and you're guiding yourself through. You're like me and the grandma. She was guiding me through, but it was just me guiding me through. And I find that if you study stories of people, okay, who are in mental hospitals, they're the smartest humans on the planet. They're not crazy. They're crazy because how they react makes them crazy, right? And it's like I knew, for example, right, because I've seen the stories, I've seen films, I've seen it. If, for example, they came around my house, the crisis team, right, when they did, and I started to tell my story in the past, and they'd say, "Oh, you've got autism or Asperger's." No, I fucking don't. All right, calm down. Like, I have to call the police. Don't fucking tell me. And then I get angry, and then I kick him, and then the police come round, and I'm fighting. Get off me! And then they put me in the van. They lock me up, and they put medicine in me, calms me down. And then I get my energy back and I'm trying to escape. Then you punch them. That you go down the crazy path, which is a death sentence, like you kill yourself, right? But the knowledge of, okay, they're going to come around. They're going to be looking for their reasons to put me back on the meds. But don't give them that. And if they want to go into the past, well, I understand that the past is the past and this is the future, and they don't get that. So let them ask me questions now. If it's present, I'll answer it, and if it's the past, I won't, because again, everyone changes. They don't understand. They go to the same job, their same shitty home house, their wife nagging them, bollocks, blah blah blah. It's the same old shitty bullshit. That they don't get that, and that's fine. It's not their fault. They're doing their job. They want to help. They are believing they are helping. Okay, but really they don't understand the bigger picture. And so, like with like your father saying, you should go back in your meds or whatever. I realized that rather than trying to convince people what you're going through, lead an example. So you knowing all this stuff, change your life. Order your room, bin the clutter, get your problems sorted out. Get them all done, pay back your debts, and change your diet and stop doing drugs and stuff like that. And people will see change. Like, stop trying to convince them that you're normal or there's a reason for this. Like, because every time you spend energy, for example, telling your dad that I'm not just obsessed cleaning my room, I'm doing this to have an ordered brain, he's gonna think, because he's the parent, that he's got to be the one in charge, the one who's got the last word, for example, because he's the parent. That's just nonsense, right? I taught my parents all this because they were in the beginning saying you need to go on the meds, you're crazy, and I had to parent them, teach them, and now they get everything that I know. But rather than spending time trying to tell them why you're crazy, which I understood I couldn't do, I had to lead an example, sort my life out, and then you'd see that when I'm telling you, you'd naturally take my lead and allow me
Yes.
to be in everything in the loft, be in everything in the garage, be in all the shit in the drawers, be in files and then order files. Like I spent hours and hours and hours ordering my parents' files and bank statements because it took so much energy to find like a bank statement in 2019 because it was just mixed with fucking everything. So I had to spend time ordering the bank statements. I went into my parents' wardrobe and I put all the jeans in one order and then all the t-shirts and all the shirts in order and all the dresses. I did all the buttons up. Again, that takes a lot of fucking time. But
Yes.
the reason behind that was because you now need to find time for the things you want in your life. And if you just suddenly are in a rush and you go to your wardrobe and you just take off your jacket, which wasn't hung up,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't take time. But if you do the buttons up and you're in a rush, that takes time to undo them. So now next time you've got to find time to undo all the buttons that I've annoyingly done up for my father, right? But it's about finding time, breaking that cycle of change and doing the same shit. Um, and so the knowledge of the awareness without the knowledge is the death sentence. Because if I didn't have the knowledge of what they were looking for, I would have spent so much time trying to convince them I'm not crazy that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't putting in the work to change my life
Yes.
to the results that would prove it themselves.
Yes. Yes.
And I learned all this from online and YouTube videos and people telling their story, about
Yeah.
how people thought they were crazy and then they had to just lead and then eventually you come out of that pattern. It really is
Yeah.
amazing. YouTube, I'll
Yeah.
be dead if it wasn't for YouTube.
I think, and that's sort of what I meant by I lost a lot of friends. Is like I couldn't take the time to explain to them what my experience was. I just had to allow them to see and believe whatever they needed to do, because to fight it is a lot of energy. To try and convince or to tell them what was really happening would take the time I need in order to do the thing that will get me out of that. And eventually, if somebody's still looking or wants to see, it will resolve itself, but it will resolve itself for me, whether or not they decide to look again or change an opinion. And I think that gave me a lot of strength, because I think when I lift up, you're going to get a lot of opinions that come in, and so for me, going through people who I thought were some of my closest friends, and just coming together and forming a story from their concerns and their fears and their worries and insecurities, and not including my truth in that calculation, that was allowed me to grow. Like that pain brought a wisdom and a strength that I think will allow this other part of my journey to actually be a little easier.
That's the thing. I understood that my friends didn't know, like they wanted to help. They were caring. Take your meds, honestly, because everywhere you hear medication, fucking meds, 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 right? So it's not their fault. But as you become more aware and you slowly have been off the meds for a long time, things become more aware and you look at them and you see their pain and their insecurities and their anxieties and their depression and their problems, and you can't be around them anymore because you can't help them. And it feels uncomfortable to see through someone's soul and that they are lost or they're lonely. As sad as that is, you may have been friends based on football or gaming or whatever, or school friends, but then you see their pain and you're not the same. You're trying to be the same. You're trying to come down to their level to be on their level, but you're not. And you're not being true to yourself. You need to be yourself. And I became too big of an energy, too confident that I couldn't even go clubbing with my friends anymore because they always had to drink alcohol because they were insecure, nervous. They couldn't handle people looking at them. And it made the night always end in arguments. Just stuff like that. Um, and that I don't have any friends anymore. Not that I can't get on with anyone because I can connect with anyone.
Yeah.
More connection than their family members, literally, right? Because I'm on the same energy level, right? But all my friends I had from growing up, I just became out of sync. I just evolved too much that I sadly it was the same shit over and over again, same conversations because they were doing the same thing and I was doing all that and I couldn't speak about that stuff and yet it was just boring, sadly. Um, But yeah, my friends now are animal. I go walks. I in squirrels, hedgehogs, frogs, cows, donkeys, because nature, there's always an animal, an alpaca, a squirrel's looking at me, and I'm going, hello, what are you looking at? You got your big tail, you think you're hard than that, yeah? You're not scared of me. So yeah, my friends are animals. As soon as I walk out the house, there's birds and squirrels, and it's amazing. Every
Where
cat I see, I come up to, meow, it comes up to me. That's my friend.
where are you that you see an alpaca?
So I live in the countryside pretty much. So
Oh,
there's fields with like hundreds of alpacas, brown, black,
wow.
white, grey, 5 different colours of alpacas, and they're all in the field just like running around because they're used for wool, like their fur for
Yeah.
wool.
Mhm.
And there's cows and there's donkeys and there's it's just amazing. Like I have this ability to connect with animals, but as you know, when you have a vibration that's not threatening and welcoming,
Yep.
you attract things to you. And animals just come up to me. People will
Yeah.
say, how do you get the animals to come up to you? Like, how do you tickle a cow's chin like that and get him to do that? I'm like, well, you just see love and go, hello, like go up to him like a child and cuddle and nurture them. If you are timid and shy and coming back, he's going to be like, what the fuck is going on? He's going to be scared. Just go up to him and then crouch down, let him come to you, put your hand out, let him smell, let him recognize your sounds. Keep doing that same thing over again. Eventually, he'll realize you're no threat. In the animal kingdom, right? For example, the Lion King, there's loads of lions and there's buffalo and there's birds. They're all around each other. They're not a threat anymore. I'm no different to that bird or the buffalo. Eventually, you realise I'm just drinking from the same stream as you, and I'm eating the same carcass. I'm no threat. And that donkey will realise that I'm just going to sit down with you in the field, and that I'm no threat. And that's the same as nature, same as people. Like when you meet people, people are nervous. When a guy meets
Mhm.
another guy, he's intimidated. That
Mhm.
is just it's just nature. Eventually, you
Mhm.
get to know the guy, and he's your mate, he's your pal. All right, bruv. See you later. Yeah.
Mhm.
Same with women. Sort of the bitchiness comes out, like
Mhm.
she's judging me. She's got longer hair, nicer eyes, whatever. It's just the same thing. And then when you master it, you master the whole universe because everything, as you know, is made from energy.
Mhm. I think I some of the people I'm closer would say that I could be quite the comedian, but I think it was from picking up on energies and finding a way to bridge them, and not being afraid to look silly or laugh at myself and sort of put myself in that position to bridge that kind of whatever sort of energies in the room, and it's my mom still calls me Magic Molly, but there are times where it feels like I don't feel like doing that anymore.
No, I absolutely understand. Like my father's a singer, and I always watched him grow up singing and speaking and being funny and doing stand up to audiences and making them laugh. He could speak to anyone and anything. When I was growing up at school, I didn't have the confidence to put my hand up to answer a question because I'd get anxiety, my heart would pound, and I'd get nervousness and I'd mumble, and everyone would be like, "What the fuck are you on about?" And I'd just go into a little bubble. Okay, and I learned the law of attraction. I followed the voice in my head, which is just show confidence and they'll buy into it. And I started to sort of go down the pub, go to these people's houses, my friends growing up who would always put me down, and I would dominate, I'd take charge. Rather than when people used to be like, you're so weird or stop talking, you're annoying, it's because they were insecure within themselves. It wasn't a reflection of me. It was like a default thing that you say something like out of the ordinary. What are you on about? You're so weird. I take that as a negative, but it's
Mhm.
not. It's just the mechanism that when they don't understand something, they
Mhm.
say that to push you away. Instead, when they would say you're so weird, what you on about? I would keep going. I would take charge. I would keep talking until they
Mhm.
shut up, basically, and they had nothing else to say. And I would dominate the room. Eventually, these people weren't there trying to say you're so weird, just so what you were so weird. They just would disappear one by one. They would disappear, and then they wouldn't be there anymore. And then I'd go out into like the clubs by myself because I wanted to gain confidence. I used to go clubbing 4 times a week. I couldn't
Mhm.
speak to a girl. Like I couldn't do it. And I went clubbing so much that I'd hear the voice in my head say, "Go up to that girl, go and get her number." It's almost like it was a game, like in Practical Jokers. You got the earpiece in, and you're being told do this and do that. So you don't see it as you. It's not I'm going up to a girl. You feel like somebody's challenging you. So when you go
Mm-hmm.
up to the girl, it's not if she doesn't like you, it's you as a person. It's just part of the game. So now it's not me going up to the girl, asking for a number, getting rejected. It's somebody else like telling me. But what's amazing is that it's all in our head. Everyone's insecure. You go up to a girl, she's going to give you a number. I'm a good-looking guy. So what was I worried about? And every single person gave me their number. So it's all in my head. And so again, I learnt to go into random situations of people I didn't know, start talking and leading, handle the you're so weird, what you on about? God, you're crazy. You on drugs? What drug are you on? Energy, mate. It's from the universe. Supply is unlimited, right? Energy, yeah. And like you said, they think you're on drugs. And you start talking like this, talking really quick. And then eventually, when they realize that you're not kind of weakening with their negative energy, like you're so weird, fuck off, like you're such a freak, and you keep going and talking, the negative ones fuck off, and then you're always left with a few people who are interested.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's always a few that sort of they're listening, like, you're really fascinating, like, and they listen, and now you've out of 10, you've lost 7, you've gained 3, and then you realize to overcome that negative energy by keep being you. And then you realize, wow, if I just keep talking in every situation where people are like, you're so weird, you're so negative, they will disappear. And you've
Yeah.
done it. Now you can speak to anyone, as you said, build bridges with anyone in a group. It's like you're the comedian. It's not that you're a comedian, even though you are probably funny. It's just you understand how to lead a conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
and you connect with everyone. I mean, it's the same story, similar story, isn't it?
Yeah. I like your stories. Makes me think of. I always like the analogy of a tuning fork. If you don't let someone's negativity be the tuning fork for you, then you can continue being like, no, I hear your tuning fork, and I will tune myself back to this, and I'm going to hold this. This is the tune that this is the tone frequency that I'm. And if this dissonance is too much for you, or you don't want to flow, then it won't want to be in that room. If it's like, no, I'm uncomfortable at this level. I remember a friend got really angry. Like they kept getting angrier and angrier because I wasn't getting upset with them.
Yeah, I had those situations as well. They're
And
trying
I
to
was
get the
like,
same reaction, and it doesn't work.
I'm not gonna be upset right now because you need, like, there's this sort of like need to see your stress and upset reflected. And that doesn't benefit either of us. Plus, it's just funny, and that doesn't help. Um, but I mean, I have to laugh at it because even if I'm upset, like I can generally always make some kind of joke or humor about it because I know that I'm just a metaphor for myself. I'm experiencing myself. I've, and so and generally that's it. I can find a way that it's amusing on some level. Um, there's certainly some experiences that I'm like, when it was like, no, you create all the situations you're in, and I'm like, well, why would I have ever created that? Things from when I was young. Why would I ever put myself through that? Why? But it's not just like you're like, I'm going to agree to someone like violating my person in the following way, or I'm going to agree to someone crossing these boundaries and making it uncomfortable for me. It's like it doesn't work like that, but there is a built up behavior and way of doing things. And if you come from an environment that did not work through that, then I almost feel like this is why I feel like sometimes the relationship with your parents are some of the most intimate relationships. It's because your children have to work through everything you didn't in order to get to the other side to figure out, well, what am I on the other side of this? But I had to first be like, what is this? And what is this? And what is this? And what is this? And holy Moses, I think I'm in a clearing. Um,
I had to
but
I had to parent my parents. I took 3 years of my life, so I had run my own business up until 21. I shut it all down and realized that there's more to life than money and chasing money and buy my parents a house to make them happy. And then she said, "Do it for you rather than for me," and that was it. Okay, I'll do it for me. I had to fix their divorce, basically marriage, because they were divorced otherwise because they didn't get it. Problem child, as I was, like just my mum. saying just be normal and stuff. It was just destroying everything. So at 21 until 23, 24, I spent 3 years of my life teaching them all and heard, drove them crazy. Stop going on, keep repeating that knowledge, like everything and everything. Because my mum was trapped like I was, but she didn't understand that she was trapped. She wanted something. What was it? Was it love? Was it money, sex, freedom, whatever? No, it was you wanted yourself, basically, like I did, right? So I recognize these signs because I was me because of them. As you said,
Mm-hmm.
you are your parents. So I saw myself in my parents, so I knew exactly what to do, exactly how to do it. Only I could heal my parents. You can't heal your friend because you've come from a different cloth, basically. So I knew how to work my parents, how to enlighten them, how to free them. And I did it for both of them. I did it a year for my dad. I did it and because my dad was born on the 14th. Then I did a year for my mum. She was 21 and I'm on the 28. So I had to put it all in order. 14, 21, 28. My sister was born on the 3rd. So imagine that my dad was positive, my mum was negative. I am positive and negative. I had to fight myself through hell and heaven. Well, when she had my sister, I completed her. So my dad's one, my mum is one, my sister's one. It's three. Like it's just positive, like like 1, 2 thing, like cells attracting, bang. But I got all the shit. I got the negative nonsense, right? So I had to heal them, teach them for 3 years. My dad, then my mum. Because I did me, then my dad, then my mum. Because I did myself and I saw my dad, I thought, fuck's sake, I've now got to do him. And then I looked at my mum, I thought, oh my God. Eve took even longer. So again, 3 years out of my life, teaching them of the knowledge, but also making everything in the house new. All the things that reflected the past and old patterns and photos and old lampshades and pillows. I had to bin everything, put everything in order, like clothes and the files. Okay, everything just went up into the loft. Nothing got dealt with. It was just in the loft. So when I binned it all, no one knew what was up there anyway because it was just clutter, lampshades, pillows, 50 of everything, right? And then I bought them all new stuff because then I got a part-time job for the first time because I'd always worked myself. Hadn't worked for 3 years. I shut my entrepreneurial brain down. Had no thoughts, no twitching. I thought, well, I've got to fucking get back to business. So I got a part-time job, which they always said growing up, you should get a fucking job. Just get a job. Everyone said, get a job. Fuck off. I got a job, right? And then all the money I made, I bought new things in the house, new TVs, new lampshades, new pillows, new whatever. Got the walls painted. So now my mum had all of the stuff she had in her head growing up that she wanted. She had clarity around her and she could think moving forward. So you remove the past, you ground the present, and you create the future. So now she can think of stuff and it can happen because she hasn't got to go back and do all the stuff that she should have done 15 years ago. Like, so yeah, it's I don't even know what the question was, but yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time organizing it at my parents. And they made a joke. They're like, "Oh, it's when your OCD comes in really handy."
Yeah. They turn it around so it's like they're in control because having control is something that we all want, but having your child in control of you and you know that they are smarter than you, it's a it's a weird feeling for someone who's supposed to be the parent and all their friends, mothers, all their friends who have children. They're the parent, but then all of a sudden this person isn't the parent. Their child's the parent. What is a parent? Just teaching you wisdom and knowledge how to survive. So this thing about parent is just nonsense. So for example, I go in the garden right now. I'm digging around the fence to put stones there, right? So they say, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Can you stop that?" So they want me to do the garden, but by saying, "Can you stop that?" means that they've told me, which means that it's almost like, well, he's just going to do what he's going to do anyway. But at least I've told him. It's almost like reverse psychology, yeah? That rather than just letting him do it and then saying, you've always got the best idea. It's you shouldn't be doing that. So they've got the upper hand, and then when I do it and it all looks nice, they're like, "Oh, actually, you were right. It's nice." But they feel like they have the upper hand by saying like, "Oh, it's your OCD. It comes in handy." Fuck off. OCD is about ordered mind. I've ordered your house. Your brain isn't ordered. It's not OCD. You just got a cluttered head. But they feel like they've got control by saying, "Oh, it's her OCD again." But she does do a good job when she orders that conservatory and orders that garage. Everything's in perfect order. I can find everything right now. I can find everything. I know where it's all labeled and everything. But it's her OCD. It's almost like you want to be grateful for her doing that because you couldn't, but you don't want to give her too much credit because then you have to accept the fact that
Mm.
your head's cluttered yourself and you could have never have done that.
Mm.
And your daughter is more elite than you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had people use the sort of ADHD to also see that I'm not incredibly organized. They're like, "Oh, you're everywhere," and I'm like, and it's, or if I was late to something, or they would use it almost to blow off other aspects of myself. Um, so then I would sort of recognize too that there's few people that will know you. Um, because if anyone had said, "Where's this?" I knew what, I knew where the file cabinet, I knew how it was organized, I knew where that was, I knew where that drawing was, I knew where those paints were, where those brushes were, um, where all the different cables were and labeled, and why they were labeled that way. And there was a
Yes.
system, and the system had to be there because I was trying to accomplish something complex.
Yes.
And it's the same with like a filing system. Like if I'm going to do this animation, it's like several pre-compositions to get to this final composition. And same with like working with a computer in order to get a complicated production. And if you're limited with technology, it's like, well, what do I have to bounce together now in order to get there and get this more complex thing? So you have to be able to
Mhm.
sort and organize it to achieve it. And so if you don't tidy it, you don't have the opportunity to see how much more complex and how much more you can get without the initial organization.
What's interesting is when I learned all this stuff online about, power of the mind, simplifying your mind, no one ever taught me to clear the loft out, to order everything, to label everything, to know where everything is. That's not taught. What's always taught is the mental clarity and, thought projection, but no one speaks about the physical objects. Like, I worked this out myself. What's interesting is that we've literally, like, for example, soulmates, right? You know, a soulmate, someone on that same frequency. I don't know how old you are, but your story is exactly the same as my story, right? It's exactly the same. Like, everything in the house was labeled, it was ordered, every plug had like what the thing was, because otherwise they're trying to find the fucking DVD plug and they can't. So it's just like common sense to label it. But everything was ordered, everything was aligned, all the cupboards, you got the section of like fruits and the beans and the fish section, and to them, it was OCD. I would come down in the morning before they woke up. I put all the stuff in order. That was it. I used to come down after they went to bed, order everything, put all the um, pictures in order. Everything in the fridge was in order. Date order, time order. Everything was in order. They'd never seen such clarity. It was like a computer system. Everything was in order. They knew where everything was. Everything in the garage had a section. So when you want to find the oil for the car, it's there. When you want to find the weed killer, it's there. Otherwise, you just got fucking bottles all over the place. That's not good. That's stressful for the mind. So again, it was like I put everything in order. I put all the clocks the same. Because think about it. In a house, it's like 8 clocks. They're always off and out by a minute or two. That's not good. What's the point in having a fucking clock if it's just going to be wrong? So I put all the clocks in order. And eventually, my mum went from not knowing where anything was because there was just clutter and shit and everything. Where's this? Where's that? Where's the sellotape? I went through every drawer, every item, every wardrobe, every cupboard. I made them bin the stuff they didn't need. Like, go through, there was like 8 quilts, for example. I put them in my room from the loft for 3 weeks until she got round to doing it. So for 3 weeks, I had to have my room flooded with black sacks of quilts just so she at some point could go through them all. Then I had to do the suitcases. That was 6 weeks. Then there was the pillows. Then there was bags of curtains. This took, it took a few years, right? Because you're getting somebody to, it takes 3 weeks for a new pattern to occur, and they were still doing old patterns. I couldn't just say do this now because they had shit to do. So again, eventually you go through everything, and now they have everything ordered, everything's labelled. I made them get filing cabinets and do all the insurance stuff, the car stuff. Being 90% of old paperwork, bank statements from like fucking 10 years ago, just bollocks, right? And you realise all the baskets you had, all the drawers you had, you don't need because they were just there to fill shit with. So now you've got all this space in your house. And now you can put like a new thing there. But then they knew where everything was. She went from not knowing where the fuck anything was. It was Oliver, where's this? Where's that? You're really stressing me out. I can't find anything. I just had to go through the process. I couldn't tell them what I was doing. I just had to keep doing it. Every morning I came down, I bin all the saucepans, all the 4 pairs of scissors, the 6 spatulas, and everything was duplicated. Why? Because they couldn't find the first one, so they bought another
Yeah.
one, and they couldn't
Yeah.
find that. And then the light bulb had like 50 million light bulbs and 50 million knitting stuff and pins and stuff, and I just binned it all. And then what's amazing is that they never went and bought 50 bulbs again. They just bought bulbs as of when they needed. Actually,
Mm,
fuck, out of their work. Where's all
yeah.
the pens in the house? So then you go buy a new pack of pens, and I go to every drawer. Oh, there's another pen. There's another pen. Oh, all these pens. All of a sudden, you got fucking millions of pens.
Yeah.
And he went from having no order in their house to having so much order. And my mum knew where everything was. I used to turn something round. Like we had an ornament in here. I used to turn it round. She was so aware, she'd turn it back. It was a game. Every time I came in, I turned it round, she turned it back. Turned it round, turned it back. Before I could do anything, she'd no fucking clue. Every time I changed the clock, a minute different, she'd know it's been changed. She'd go into the lounge, the photo had been switched. I'd switched it. She was so fucking aware, and my job was done after 3 years, and that was it. My job was done.
That's
Like your story
awesome.
is so similar to mine. It's amazing.
That's really fascinating. Yeah. I was amused sometimes with like when I was like, oh, Mom, you have 11 glue guns and 3 power drills, like.
Yeah,
And yeah, I was making the joke like in case I need to use it more than once, just to be ridiculous. But it is. It's like, well, I don't know where it is, or I don't remember if I have it, or um, and I think that you might understand more the sort of experience with the black mold as I got very displaced from this complicated system I put together for myself, and and very few people could comprehend it. Like I was like, okay, I had a very complicated system in place in order for me to create what I was creating and do the art. So now I'm going to have to do this on a small scale without most of everything I've owned. And even still, like I was like, oh, I can get rid of most everything. What was important to me was like funny. I'm like, oh, those crystals were important to me. I'd like to get those back. The following gear items. And yeah, that's pretty much, I'm good after that. It's like, it's like, it's just an interesting way for clarity. I'll like my journals were important. Oh, I have a fun manifestation journal story if you'd like to hear it.
absolutely.
Um, I
All the
have
time in the
a
world.
I have a close friend, Chai, and her 2 of her daughters. They sometimes would come and stay with me in Boston. And this time it was like before school. And it was easier to go get things in Boston, so they were staying over, and her and I were hanging out in the basement. And then it occurred to me, I was like, I want to give her daughter some journals. And I looked, and I had like 2 more of like my favorite journal, and then I was out of journals, and I'm always writing in journals, just filling them up. And I, for a split moment, had a twinge of, but it's my last journal, and I looked at that thought, that little electrical uh, sense, and went, that's not actually what you want. What you want is to give the opportunity for these girls to have how important a journal is to you. Like that's way bigger. And so it was really, so it was interesting to just notice it and let it go, and just get into like just this joy of like grab 2 of my favorite pens, and I walk in there, I'm like, hey guys, and they loved it. It was like really great, and I feel like, yay, woohoo. And there's the next day I was walking by the art store I really like in Central Square, and I'm like, oh, I'll just pop in and see if they happen to have, one of my favorite journals again. And and what was hysterical, I think it's hysterical, as I walked down there, that same exact brand of journal, the owner had accidentally ordered way too many. So there was a table full of these hardcover, like hand paper journals for $1 each. Um, so usually the sale price would still be like $8.99 each. That sort of like level. I was like, oh my god! So I ran back to my house, and I got my camping backpack, and I filled it, because I was like, this is a sign. I'm gonna just be giving people journals now. I was like, if there, it's still plenty for people. I just built this thing. And so that's what I would do is I would like inscribe a little something, not all the time if I had time with the person, and I would just like start giving these journals, and it felt beautiful because of what that was for me, that ability to like get stuff out, to clear space of the mind, and to give that gift to someone, like, here, clear the space in your mind, because matter only matters if you make it matter. And or is it where your focus goes, the energy flows is a popular one. But yeah, so I just liked saying, like, don't make it matter too much, the journal, because don't stop yourself from writing in it because you're not saying something important enough, or this and or whatever it is. Like, it can be your groceries or an idea or a doodle or a poem or a thought or an emotion, and don't make it so important that it either freezes you or it becomes too much of a focus and doesn't allow it to just continue to make space within yourself.
So I got whiteboards. So rather than the journal, I had whiteboards, and I used to write down all my thoughts on the whiteboard. And eventually you start going through the ones that you can do and that are relevant, and you sort of bin off the other ones, like getting a Gucci handbag. You had never got it, but you realise that Gucci handbag, they discontinued that years ago because you never applied action to that thought. It just always goes down in your head. My mum, for example, had post-it notes. She used to have
my mom too.
Yeah, she had so many thoughts on it. It was like verbal Tourette's or written Tourette's, right? So all my thoughts were in my head, right? And they just go around in my head. Every time I had an idea, I'd get on my laptop, I'd write it down. I'd have so many text edit files on my laptop, so many notes on my phone, song ideas, rap ideas, business ideas. But my brain was fucking berserk. None of that stuff, it was relevant, okay? But it was just thoughts in that moment. It was like you just have to do it. I actually, when I went through my process, I wiped my phone and I wiped my Mac. I just wiped the whole lot and I started again.
Wow.
Just wiped it because, again, it was my brain overloading. And I was listening to Eminem. Um, um, the beginning, it says, "Look, if you had one chance or one shot, one opportunity to seize everything everyone did one moment, would you capture or let it slip?" And I just wiped my whole Mac at that point. My whole life, my whole brain, every idea, everything I ever did on my computer. It was, if you want to get to where you want to be, you need to let the past go. And I just wiped my Mac, reset my phone, started again. No iCloud, just started again. And so my mum had so many thoughts on pieces of paper, things you got to do: empty the bin, recycle bin, take this back, charity, send this back, do this, do that. And when she was at work, I was going onto her thoughts and I was doing it. I was getting that thing. I was doing that. I was cutting the grass. I was painting. So now she could tick off those thoughts. And naturally, the brain starts thinking of more things to do. So the next piece of paper adds up with buy this plant and do this and get this rug. So I'd had to do that. Eventually, when you feel like everything's happening, you stop thinking, you relax. When you relax, you stop thinking, and then you realize it's tiring to think. Whereas when you're thinking and you can't get stuff done, you think, well, I need to keep going to get stuff done, and just more thoughts happen, and it's just bollocks on that piece of paper. So the more I did for her, the less things on that piece of paper there was. The happier you become, the more relaxed you come. Then they sort of surrender, and now you can say, can I get you a cup of tea? Can I do this for you? Can I go shopping for you? Can I cook for you? And then for the first time in a long time, have this feeling of relaxation, surrendering control, letting someone else take control. Not they're trying to control you, but just you not being in control for the first time. And they relax and they sleep better and they can't be asked. So then the brain shuts down for the first time because it hasn't had the power from thinking to charge itself up again. And now the thoughts just reduced. And then there was no paper. Then you're not buying pens to write. You're not buying extra pads to write your stuff because you're only buying pots to put shit in. You're only buying pads to write on. So now the thoughts just go down. And the more I got everything, I removed all the past. I did the stuff she needed to do. I did the stuff that she wanted to do now. Now that piece of paper was just future thoughts. It was, let's go on holiday. Work out how much a flight costs. Work out how much a new car costs. Work out how much this costs. And the thoughts just reduced. and it's so peaceful when you're not thinking all the time. To the point where she had 3 alarm clocks. My mum had 3 alarm clocks, 3 fucking alarm clocks. So I taught her to go to bed earlier. Only use one alarm clock. Get up when it rings. If you need to lie in, go to bed an hour earlier. To the
Mm-hmm.
point where you're waking up naturally before your alarm. So you just need one alarm clock. 3 wooden spoons, three alarm clocks, every one. How many fucking scissors do you need? How many fucking pillows do you need? Yeah, like it was just the cycle of the brain, like just wanting too much of everything, and it was just needed nothing. And so now there's just no thoughts. Never been so in control, never been so happy, and now she can just think and do because she's not got so much other bullshit that she needed to do, which was just like fucking the brain just going ballistic, and everyone is this problem. Everyone is on a form of medication for anxiety, depression. Everyone's on something for something. Sleep pills. It's just like, oh, problem, medication. Oh, my
Mm-hmm.
tummy hurts, antibiotics. Oh, I've got an ulcer, fucking Bonjela. Oh, I've got a bad knee, plaster. Everything's just, you can't have a problem right now and deal with it. You've got to just get someone else to deal with it. And the problems just
Mm-hmm.
occur forever. And yet we get called the crazy ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been enjoying like trying to figure out when there is a sign or there's a pain or there's a something like, okay, what is this? But there's also just not what is this like overthinking it, but what is this? Is there a shift I can do somewhere else to allow this energy to flow, or is this a reason that this is happening now? Or so I sort of don't mind dealing with the sensation of it without an ibuprofen or something like that. Um,
I've not taken tablets for like I used to take hay fever tablets, cough mixture, cough tablets, sore throat tablets. I believe that once you go to the doctor, you'll always go to the doctor. And if you don't go to the doctor, you'll never need to go to the doctor. That's not a coincidence. That's just you dealing with your own shit. Like, just your body gets used to dealing with it. Like, if you bang your knee, yeah, it swells up, it bleeds. Just don't focus on it, and you'll forget how you cut yourself. So again, every time you feel sick, understand why you feel sick. Have you eaten something that's different? Are you nervous? Don't take a fucking tablet to suppress that sick feeling. And get used to dealing with it. If you have a bad leg, deal with it. Animals, when they get wounded, they don't have a fucking tablet to take. They just walk on, otherwise they die. You know, they just won't get food. They just fucking die. So just keep walking. The pain goes away, problems disappear. I mean, I don't take tablets. I'm very against it all because of my situation with my Tourette's shit, right? It's the same bullshit. Trying to control a feeling that you can control yourself. Every time something happens, you have a problem, you get pain or a headache. I just deal with it. I don't get any problems, headaches or anything, but when you compare to other people, when something hurts, just deal with it. Go through it. If you focus on a headache, it gets worse until you take the medicine. Don't focus on it. The neurons won't be firing up, so the nerves won't be connected and firing up, which means they're more sensitive. That it just won't be as bad as you think it is. Like for example, when you're cold, you tense up. When you tense, your nerves are on like they're more like sensitive, and you get more cold, and you start shivering. If you just relax, you don't shiver. So again, you get cold from tensing up because it's cold, because your nerves are on like high alert. If you're focusing on the headache, focusing on the pain, focusing on feeling sick, it always gets worse. I proved this. I had a hip pain that I convinced myself existed through bad posture, through sitting on my computer all night. And every time I focused on that hip, the pain was just always there, to the point where I was going to get it sorted out. And I stopped focusing on it and just walked normally, and it disappeared. Um, I was obsessed that I had scoliosis or bad posture due to being on my computer all night. Okay. I went to the chiropractor and I said, have I got scoliosis? He goes, no. I was convinced that I did, that he actually said, okay, you have a little bit. So I got him to admit there was a problem. Like when you go to the doctors and you say, please just give me something, like give me some medicine. The doctor's like, there's no problem. And then that you've got this patient like begging him to write a prescription for something. and he does it. So now you think like there's a problem. You created that damn problem. And what's amazing is that this chiropractor, okay, which I only went to because I was on my computer all night and I was aware of posture and eye strain and stuff. That's the only reason why I went to the chiropractor. But he said he had a cousin who had Tourette's and the tablets made him twitch more. And that started my journey on, okay, well, how is that possible? How can he be on medication, makes him twitch more when I'm on medication and it's supposed to cure the twitching? And that's
Mm.
when my enlightenment, it all happened like the mold. Everything started from the mold for you, for example, and it's a domino effect. He said his cousin twitches when he's on it. I had to work that out. And then it all happened in one go, literally from that moment. And they say, oh, if you hadn't gone to that doctor, none of this would have happened at that time. I'm like, no, he healed me. That doctor is a god. He's a spirit guide, yeah. So sometimes we think we're going down a path of something, it's for something else.
Yeah.
You know, you get the urge to go to this shopping center for cat food, but you've got cat food, and then there's somebody there's like, hey, I need a spiritual coach. I'm like, well, I can do that. And so it just gets us to that end, that trigger, that feather. Wasn't grandma, it's just a fucking pigeon, but it's making me more
Yeah.
aware. That mold was about seeing like, okay, I know deep down that I should be wearing a mask. I know that this mold isn't good for me, but I'm procrastinating. I'm not doing anything about it. I've read about it, but I'm just thinking, oh, I'll be fine. No, fucking sort your shit out. It's not about sorting the problem out. It's about sort your whole fucking life out. It's deal with
Mm-hmm.
that problem, get that landlord to fix it, deal with this, deal with that, deal with your mum, deal with this, all your shit. It's about just waking you the fuck up. Like for me, I always knew this stuff I should have been doing, but I wasn't doing it. And it's procrastinating, and it's that voice saying you need to be doing it. Eventually, you start listening, and it happens all in one go. Because, again, if you do all your thoughts on that notepad, like
Yeah.
my mum, nothing left to do.
Yeah.
You're free.
If you
But
you get out of the way of yourself, it's like you suddenly there's a flow.
yes, you're in flow.
Mm-hmm.
That flow state is amazing when you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything just you deliver leaflets, you get calls, you sell the furniture, you get make the money, and then use that money to do that. It's just bang, 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 bang. And you look at other people spending all their time setting up a business, getting registered, fucking getting their website up, and or getting their filing system. Like, fuck me, man. The business doesn't even launch because it's just got just jump in and swim. Like
Yeah.
just jump in. Like my
Launch first.
podcast.
Absolutely.
Didn't need topics, didn't need a bloody logo. Just make a website, talk, and
Yep.
just put a picture of myself up. Just fucking get in there. 50 podcasts down.
Yeah.
People spend so much
Yeah.
time. Perfect logo, perfect name. I don't like that name. I've got to do this name. And fuck it, that's not how life works. Just get on with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Just start doing it. And that was I'm a bit of a recovering perfectionist, so that it was interesting because I released albums many years ago, and I'm always creating, but I wasn't putting out the music that I was doing, and sometimes it was like, oh, I'm improving, I'm working on it, or there's not this or that, but there's also this. That's not the message that I want to be the one that I want to give the world. So it's almost like I had to, because I would, whenever I had an emotion, I would sort of explore. I'd go into it with an oral exploration and come back out with melody, music, mostly most of the time lyrics, not always. And so now that I'm at the point where the music and the message is like, I'm like, yes, thank you. And the guidance is like, you see now that the whole past was to help people too, that journey through that. And so I was like, oh, so I'm gonna end up releasing things in that manner, like, oh, okay, so if you want to explore this emotion in order to release it, here's some optional pathways, there, because it does a disservice to be like, ta-da, we're there, and not be like, oh, this was a journey. um,
Yeah, I was always perfecting everything. I was like spent so much time perfecting something that I never actually did anything. Like I
yeah
was always constant upgrades, constant improvements, constantly bettering myself. Like kind of becoming too smart. It's like creating a spaceship and we just have planes right now. I went from
right
planes to spaceships to teleportation. I'm like, well, if I can just get someone to invest in me for this teleport thing, I'd make millions. But it's like I was always improving myself. And if I couldn't get that, I'd improve it. If I couldn't get that, I'd improve it. I spent
yeah
forever just, as I said, perfecting the logo, perfecting the name. There's no
Yeah.
fucking content. And I have learnt from this. I will get so obsessed that I'll make everything perfect. And I know that nothing is perfect. And that I will spend so much time making it perfect that it just doesn't exist. Now I don't give a shit. Now, as I said, turn on the podcast, talk. If I don't talk about something, give a shit. Just flow. Because I know what I used to be like, obsessed. Like Arthur, for example, if I had a topic I want to speak to you about, I'd be like all day, why the f speak about if I said that? If I know I'd got on earlier and I'd fucking drive myself crazy. And it's just, I know what it used to be like. And it's scary because it kind of like a bit like a drug addict. You can't relapse. You can't look at drugs anymore because you will relapse. I can't get obsessed. The minute I start perfecting something and wanting it to be perfect, I just think fuck it and just move on. Shut the computer down, go for a
Yeah.
walk, and then you realise it doesn't matter. It matters in that moment, which is in your head. Just
Yep.
let it go. Just out of interest, how old are you?
Old. Yeah, I'm old. I'm getting up there. I actually forgot how old I was until I was in a nutritionist office, and they were shocked
Because you look
by my
like you could
age.
be 28, for example. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've. But yes, thank you. I was told that. Actually, somebody told me 19, which shocked me because then I'm like definitely not 19, but I'll take it. I feel kind of solid that in like, oh, I'm just going to show people that aging doesn't have to happen like they think it has to happen.
I'm only asking because I want to see when's your birthday. Don't say the year, like just the number.
Oh, December 8th.
Okay. Yeah, so obviously biology number and government number are two different things. Government number is just okay, when were you born? And then that's the government age, but the biology age is no relevance at all. Like my mum's 55, she has all of her tests. She's got the body of a 35-year-old.
Yep.
So the biology has no relevance to age. Like people looking at you thinking, wow, you look really good for your age. It's just no, you look shit for your age. Like there's no age, there's no number. You're just existing. Give your plant water, nutrient, space, it will grow. Give it sunlight, it will grow. Feed yourself good food, good sleep. You'll live forever. Like it's not that I look good for my age. It's just everyone else doesn't understand and they look shit for their age. Like aging for me is a man-made thing. Right? Wrinkles, it's man-made. If you put on weight from eating, your skin's going to stretch. Wrinkles, if you don't have enough sleep and enough sun. Wrinkles, if you feed yourself poor food, bad skin. Wrinkles. It just becomes part of life that you get old, you get wrinkles, and But yeah, I look very young. People say I look. Sometimes I had like 18, 19, 20, 21. I'm 28. No, 27, right? But to me, it's just I die when I die, when I don't have the need to go out and do stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. There's no such thing as a number. Um, it's not a shock. I don't know how old you are. I don't really care, but I just wanted to sort of
Yeah, yeah.
because I'm all about like birthdays and like planets and shit. Like Mercury hasn't been round for 30 years, right? And apparently, for an Aquarius, which is around December, January time, whatever, it means money. Now, I've never had money my whole life, and I know that I'm gonna make a lot of money very soon. And I didn't know about this Mercury thing, but it hasn't gone around for 30 years, and now it's gonna come round. It's gonna come round once they said, and it's gonna come round for 3 years and stick around. So I plan to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30, but I've never had any money. So it's like for this whole time I've wanted to make money. Why haven't I not been able to do it? And I realise I'm not in control. Not that God's in control or the universe is in control, but we're all connected to energy and the planets are connected to us. So if the planet's over there, I'll be over there. So when they say, Oliver, what planet are you on? You're up with the fairies, you're up in space. No, literally, my energy is over there. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
the sun, there's the earth. If I'm connected to Mercury, for example, Mercury's way ahead in those galaxies. That's why I am up in the fairies. But why haven't I not been able to make money? Why am I 30, still living 27, living at home, for example? Everything I do, I can't get there. Why has this planet come round now? Again, we're all controlled by another force.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily God, just another force in play. And as long as we trust our gut and keep moving, we are on the correct path. Like that path is going to end there. As long as you walk it, it's going to end there. If you don't walk it, it's still going to be there. So it's like you just have to trust your instincts. So like the thing about the planet thing, It just makes perfect sense. Well, I've never been able to make it, and yet I have all the knowledge to make it. And again, it's aligning yourself up to the
Yeah.
energies. It's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that too with Mercury, and that shifting into a new cycle. And I was like, yes. Yeah, and I think that it was interesting. It was in because I too was like, well, let me learn this other thing. 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 Let me do
Yeah.
this other thing. Let me learn this other thing. And then it was the first sort of experience I had when I was working at the Harvard Media Lab. I had a really good manager there, and he gave me this example, and he's like, so I just want to give you an example. I'm going to hold up 10 fingers, and only because I only have 10 fingers, and I just want you to know that, like, I have friends who are really talented and they've worked their whole life and they have a career and it's going well, and that's here, it's doing this thing. And he's like, but I want you to know that this is you. You're at the you're at the top of the level of everything here, and you need to be being well over 6 figures somewhere else. You don't need to be here. And that kind of blew my mind a little. And I was like, great, show me where that happens. I'm like, what's that? Like, dear door, where are you? Like I couldn't seem to perceive where that jump was made. But I also, he talked about like confidence. And I think that even if I'm showing people a program or understanding something, it was still like, there's still so much to go. I'm not making the program. I don't understand it at that level, so that I think there's a lot of like, and even a lot of like some of the programs I was using, I'm just going to using the program skill example, but it's like you're sort of improvising within that. It doesn't come with well, here's every single thing this program does. You're sort of like, well, what can I do with what it can, with the tools it has? Can I then make this with those tools? So there's a new exploration within that in itself. So a lot of times you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to make this with this. And anyhow, all of that to be said was sort of like, there's a lot more of people who weren't perfecting things, who were like, yeah, I can do that. And they didn't know what they were doing. And they just went in there and did it anyway. And so as I'm like being like, no, I can actually do these things, but I don't know how to jump in. It's almost like it's easier to jump in at the beginning for me than, but I also feel like all the skills I have set me up to move quicker now and to let go of the perfectionism. Like there's not an excuse. Not because the logo has to look perfect or this has to look perfect, but because, well, that you don't need that to function. You can go find that to work. You don't need that to you can go find that to work. You can go do this instead. You can put those things together. And for me, it's been like letting go of who I was in how I created and my art and how I presented it and how I wasn't really putting stuff out as much anymore. There was some output, but people weren't seeing what I was doing because I didn't have the system to be like, look what I'm making every day. Because I felt like, well, that's getting in the way of me making. So now it's like, I'm jumping to like, okay, instead of the YouTube I had, I'm like, oh, I just started a new YouTube channel. I'm just going to start, because it's not just going to be music and meditation stuff. It's also just going to be me talking. It's going to be me, like some of my flow poetry. It's going to be, so it's like, okay, I'm ready to step into the person that the universe sort of pushing me towards. And I kept finding reasons why I had to delay it. Hang on, I don't know how to, hang on, I don't know, how to take this with me. And a lot of times you keep trying to carry all this with you. But once you actually incorporate it into yourself, you have an easier time letting go. Like if you're practicing piano every day, when you go to like allow the flow to be there, you will have more options of where to flow within it.
Again, same thing. I had too much knowledge and no action. It was almost, let me just learn this, let me just do that, let me just find this out, then I'll do it. And it was a never-ending thing of just accumulating something before you took action. As soon as I took action, that's when it all just happened. Like, I knew everything. I could coach anyone, everything. I could be got to anything and everyone. Of somebody lived their life, but I wasn't living my life. And it was just like, okay, I just have to turn on that switch. I just have to do it. And as you said, let go of the past, let go of learning, let go of needing to know more. It's almost like an addiction. But really, it's just a pattern of a comfort zone. And you realize there's no one stopping you. You just have to do it. And then whatever you choose to do, you will turbocharge through. Like whether you do music, speaking, whatever, your brain and knowledge will turbocharge any path. Like the doctor said, you're half a person. Most people, they're not perfection. You're perfection, but it's like you're restricted to the skill. And yeah, it's just same pattern for me. Can do everything to the best of my ability, but it's like, where do I go? What do I do? Because I can be great at anything.
Right.
And it all comes down to just what makes you feel good.
It's also interesting to know how to do something, but know, you know what, I know the time that takes. I'd rather this be out the door. I'd rather that go. I'd rather this be out the door. And it also gives that perspective too. If people want to say something, it's like, it's easier for me to take a perspective if it's somebody who's doing than just somebody who's just thinking. Because to actually be able to implement and get things out, there's a different process. And it's either the option sometimes of, well, do you want this music at all? Because there's music I haven't released because the drum beat I used was on loop and the computer started to die, and it was like, well, do I have this piece the way it is or not? And I'm like, oh, the drum loop repeats forever. And there'll be some people who that what might annoy, but what if that channeled piece of art shifts things for people? Because I've sent it to people and they're like, holy shit, you totally channeled something that helps me get into this frequency and tap back into. I'm like, awesome, that's what I was feeling when it, but it's like, am I holding that back for what, to what end? And if someone doesn't know, it's sort of like I've like infinite possibilities within a finite container. Like what are you working with? You can still make something happen. You just have to release the perfectionist and release and the belief that the way it is isn't good enough. And not everyone knows the circumstances for how you got there. I had the opportunity to have my visual art up on these like huge 80-foot LED marquees in Boston last January, February, March. And when I started filming, like, I didn't even have my own camera, but I used to work at the Harvard Media Lab. So I walked, it's only like a little over a mile up there and get all this gear. And I walk all the way back and I set up, and my Friday nights are me sitting there filming stuff I just think will be beautiful for people. And I'm like, oh, this will be so beautiful. And I'll put music to it. And I just shared little tidbits online. And because I'd been creating it, another artist in Boston area, Liz Lamont, who's lovely, but she was like, hey, there's this grant to get up on the thing, see if you apply to it. And I was already set to apply. So even though it was an hour away from being due, I was like, I got this, sort of with the help of people there and me already having set the stage. But never did I think I'm going to go film this in order to have my stuff on a giant screen, and I didn't let not having a camera stop me, or it was like I just followed that little inspiration. You know what? I really want to film this thing. It's so pretty. I enjoyed that. I'm going to do that. Oh, you know what? I really want to put it into the computer and I want to create a kaleidoscope thing with it. You know what? I really want to. And it just was like following the little like, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to do. And eventually you're like setting the stage to that turbo. Oh, okay. There it goes. And so enjoying the stage setting, despite the input that might be coming from people. Society sort of has a lot of input when you're not a certain level of financial income, I think, has been. And I think that it also gives me perspective for when I am having the visage of what it was like along the whole line there is not something I would have wanted to traverse the rest of my life without. I like that wisdom and I appreciate that experience.
Did you notice growing up you used to say like but okay but like I'm okay every time you spoke?
Yeah.
So you don't say that. So you became aware of filling gaps with like yeah but you know, so you became aware of that. Maybe your parents always said you always say okay after you talk, right? And you became aware. So now when you think and speak, you don't have to fill it with like but, you just pause and then find the next word. So you're aware of that.
There are times that it doesn't, that an old program will fit one in, and that depends on their my
Yeah, I'm not
nerves
perfect.
as
I
well.
sometimes, you know, I was so aware, and people say to me, they say to me that it seems like you're reading a book. So when I speak, it's like they're reading a book because in my head, I'm almost looking forward at the next few words. So I know where I'm going, and in my head, I hear a comma as if I'm listening to someone reading back an audiobook. And then the tone goes down at the end, and then it goes up. So it's true. People say I sound like a book. It's fascinating, but I can always tell when someone has trained themselves because it's a natural thing to always feel silence with bollocks, basically. And the fact that you don't do that and you pause, that only comes through training. And my dad used to always say, when I used to waffle on to him about something, I used to always go, okay, every end of the sentence, okay, okay. So you know this, right? Okay. It was always okay. And he used to keep saying, stop saying okay. Or like, he says a lack of intelligence when you keep saying like, no, lack of vocabulary when you keep saying like. And he made me so aware that I became so aware. I know I do say it sometimes, but it all depends on the mindset. I've noticed if you're like, that's not like, but if you're, for example, saying something, telling a story, then you're thinking so you can speak slowly and the words don't have to fit. Whereas if you're suddenly trying to think about where to go out for dinner, for example, then you might be like, where should we go? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it as being something as perceivable, but it is something I perceived in me, and that's the reason I worked at shifting it. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's true because you listen to yourself back, like I did. Listen to
Mm-hmm.
myself back, and I actually used to record everything. I used to have my phone in my pocket recording everything, and I'd hear myself speak. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like things about me. I used to speak too quick. I used to mumble. I used to interrupt. I never used to listen. I used to just talk nonsense or just say like but if okay. And then the more you become aware of yourself, that's the thing. People hate looking at themselves. They hate watching themselves. That's the best thing you can do. If you don't like yourself when you're listening to yourself, that's telling you something about yourself that you need to change something about you. Don't just ignore it and stop looking at videos of yourself and take a million Instagram pictures and choose the best one. Like, there's clearly an issue there that you do not love yourself or you don't like your nose or whatever. So sort your nose out, sort yourself out, you know? If you're hearing yourself or then you don't like your voice, that's you don't like yourself, it's not your voice. I used to hate my voice because I used to hate myself and I love myself and love listening to myself, love watching myself, right? But you have to you can only like learn about your weaknesses if you face yourself. And if I didn't like myself saying bum like it, but I changed it. It is
Yeah.
amazing because I do find that the people who know all this stuff, it is a journey of the same shit. Like, not a coincidence how your journey is same as mine, ordering stuff, doing your parents and shit. It's the same journey. Like, it's a rare journey. I don't think I've actually met someone who's done that in terms of the physical stuff and the ordering. As I said, mainly it's about the mindset change. It's not the physical stuff. But if you have a clear mind and you go back to your house full of old photos and old patterns, and you're just going to relapse. It's
Mm.
like an alcoholic just leaving empty bottles in his room. You've got to clear them all out. Can't have one hidden under the couch. Because now you just have to walk a few meters to the couch. Whereas if you've got to go in your car and drive 20 minutes to the supermarket, you'll think differently.
Yeah.
How are you doing for time?
I'm fine. Yeah. How are you doing for time?
Fine, I've got next podcast at 2:30, so just whenever the conversation just fades
All
off.
right.
So yeah, plenty of time. Just
Awesome.
flowing.
I used to sort of play back like my evening. There's a like, but my evening or how I perceived I was with people once I was home. And I think that that's some of what may have been humbling, was to recognize when somebody was giving me space to sort of human my way through a conversation. Perhaps I talked more than I want to. Perhaps I didn't listen as much, as much as I wish I did, or ask as much as I wish I did, or just, or if I didn't remember a name. And I would sort of try to look back and think, okay, where are you within yourself that navigating those things is difficult? And for a long time, I thought, oh, I'm just not good with names. It was just this belief that I had. And it wasn't until I was sort of learned a bunch of tricks from his teacher, Jim Quick, that now everybody goes, oh, then we'll remember the name. What was that person's name that other day? What was that? It's almost like it shifted for other people's perception of me as well when I shifted it within myself. And that was just a piece of information, and a few different techniques that I started to put into myself, while also really understanding that it was important to me to remember them, because I wanted people to have an atmosphere of feeling heard. That it was important for me to stop and take enough time to know their name, to remember what they were speaking about, to be present. And I would do a game with myself sometimes where if I was going out with a friend, I would say, okay, tonight I'm not going to talk about myself. If I'm asked about myself, I'll just try to keep something very brief, maybe a yes or a no, and then I'm going to flip the question right back. And if I think of something I'm going to say, I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to allow myself to see that I had and I'm just going to let it go and stay and let them direct the conversation. I'm just going to go for the ride. And it it really, after a time, becomes a meditative state. It's quite beautiful because I'm not trying to control anything, and I continue to just hand it back. And it is a game in the sense, because there are times at which I'm not that. But I think there is a time and place. Sometimes it's like stepping in to be the comedian, or I'm going to share a story, or I'm going to verbalize something. And I find it, when I attempt to fill space when I'm nervous, that navigating that will do something a little similar to what just happened, which is like longer pauses between the words. When there's a little bit of me that, even though it's not standing in front of me when I in the flow path, there might be a little something like leaning up into the flow, like, hey, this other perception. So it's like you don't want to have too much perception on yourself while you're speaking. You want to let what wants to come out come out. I
Hold that
veered that,
thought.
interestingly.
Hang on. Hold that thought. I need to go to the toilet, okay?
Mm. Oh, I'll go too. I'll
Okay.
meet you back.
Okay. there for my chair. Come on. Come on. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, again, so in life, right, we're all different vibrations, right? The lower the energy, the more common that frequency is, and the higher the energy, the rarer the frequency. So imagine like the highest frequency is 7. Most people are like 1, 2, 3, 4 if you're lucky, right? People who are like very spiritually aware, say 6 or 7, right? It's like the arpeggio music scale. You can go up the notes, right? It's just like it doesn't end. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, D, F, G, A, B, C. The higher up the keyboard you go, the higher the sound of the notes. And the higher up you go, the less people are out there on that frequency. So, for example, I come across people what I would call like, imagine soulmates are just people on your frequency at that time, but the twin flame is the ultimate. It's like when you become complete, you are a set frequency. Like you're just one energy, right? That's a twin flame, but anyone before is like a soulmate. Now, the higher up the scale you go, the closer you are to the end, the less people there. And as you go down, so for example, you've got one person there, 2, the note below, then 3, then 4, then 5. And I find that there's people out there who are the same at the same frequency you at a certain time, and you're thinking exactly the same thing and the same path, following the same patterns, right? Your story is so similar to mine. I've never met anyone who's been on this similar path. Like the thing about how I used to be in the car with a friend, I remember giving up free will. So similar to what you're saying, you let them take the lead of the conversation. So I would only go out if they asked me to go out. I surrendered everything. I was always one leading, let's do something. And I became aware of this, gave up free will. And now I let them come to me, say, let's do something. I go, okay. And then we go in the car, and rather than me talking about me like I used to, or me taking the lead and saying, let's do this, I'd let them take the lead. And then it'd all be about them. I became serving other people as opposed to me, because it was always about me, me, me. And my dad used to always be like, it's always about you, isn't it? Me, 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 me. And that haunted me. So now I flipped it. So now in the car, rather than speaking about me and how great I am, it would be, so how was your day? And for the first time, people were speaking about themselves, which they don't often do, because imagine everyone wants to speak about themselves. Nobody's listening, nobody's speaking unless it's about themselves. So asking somebody and then sitting in that car journey for ages, letting them speak about themselves and showing an interest. Not that I actually had an interest, but showing like I did. Oh wow, that's amazing. Tell me about that. And for now, they're like, oh, well, yes. So I went to my nan's house and then this happened. Oh, that sounds amazing, man. And now you give them attention and you listen to them and they're being heard. And then you said they flip it round on you because they feel guilty about how they've been speaking about them for ages. And you sort of go, yeah, that's really good. Oh, by the way, you saw about the other day with your dog. Did you end up getting that dog lead? Oh, and then you flip it around and you flip it around. It's becoming aware of being the one who's always naturally going to dominate the conversation, because naturally the person who can lead and speak more is the person who leads. But I flipped it. I remember walking once around a lake and I became aware, like, the sun, the shadow, if the sun moves, the shadow of the tree moves. And I became aware that this person's following my lead. Now I'm next to him, right? But I'm like a millimeter ahead, and he's following my lead. So he's now just sort of walking where I'm walking. It seems like we're together alongside, but we're not. And I sort of started to step back. So I became a millimeter behind him, and now he was in front. And we started to walk slower and slower and slower, because now he was leading, but he didn't know how to lead. And it was amazing because I confused his compass. I allowed him to lead. He said, "Where are we parked?" I don't know. And I let him take the lead. To put long story short, we were parked over there. I fucked up his compass in his direction through observing him and changing the ability. We walked halfway across the lake and had to walk all the way around because I allowed him to lead. For the first time, he'd never led before. Normally it's Oliver, I know where we are. It's like, well, don't just rely on me, okay? Think where we are, know where we are. But the point is that for the first time he was in control, and it was a weird thing. You couldn't understand why. Well, a conversation, we were speaking, but it was different. We were alongside each other, but he didn't realize he was following me, just being that millimeter in front. And It was amazing. I remember playing the silent game, which means I just looked at him and I didn't say anything. And I basically hypnotized him. It's like what animals do. They will glare at an animal, right, to trap it in its mind, and then the animal surrenders, right? I remember looking at him playing the silent game, and he became a child. He sort of started to be like, "Please stop, please stop it, stop." He started to twitch.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. He started to twitch because
Mm-hmm.
he started to go into his head and understand what was going on. And then me observing him made him nervous, made him twitch more. And then he didn't have the ability to know where we parked. Again, phenomenal. Same as your story about letting that person take the lead and becoming aware of the dynamics in the room rather than speaking about you because naturally you're a leader and you will ask them questions. And I realized I could dominate the whole room. I was like, I could, it was almost like it was a show. And I was interviewing everyone in my friendship group. I was allowing them to speak. I'd be like, so tell me the other day, did you end up getting your flowers from the supermarket? Oh, and John, did you tell? It's like you were allowing everyone to speak. And then as soon as they put it on you, you flip it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it's a really nice exercise. Yeah, and to anyone watching this, I recommend trying it too.
Giving up free will. Act when there's something to act upon, rather than you
Yeah.
always acting.
And there's nowhere that this has to go, nowhere this has to be, nothing I have to say, nothing that I have to be. Um, it's it's just is as it is. So there's nothing forced in terms of my way of whether it's like wanting to share or wanting to be perceived or wanting someone to know. But if I'm coming from that standpoint, that's not really the energy that I would want to put out either. So sometimes it's taking that back step within myself and allowing, whether that's me being quieter at some point as well. I don't know if that makes sense because I'm listening to the room and waiting, not waiting because I'm not going to jump in yet or I'm not going to do it, but it's like it's playing that same sort of game within myself. Like, oh, when the observer me stares at that me, she gets like twitchy. You know, she's like, okay, what are you doing? You're watching me. Should I be doing something else? Like there's a little bit of that I have to be like, okay, we can just breathe here. I'll wait till you're feeling a little better before we we continue. Um, and that's an interesting one as well. As somebody who's performed music live a lot, I'll know that to get to the music, to get to that flow, there's a lot to navigate through sometimes. And then eventually, like sometimes it can be the first song, but sometimes it's a few songs in, there's a relax. There's not, you're not trying to find the flow around in between as much. It's not as many rocks in the stream. And or maybe I don't know, the metaphor, we've done enough of a divot that we're not trying to force or find it. It just starts to flow easier, with or without the nerves. And I think that almost just is taking a back seat at first to like, oh, I've got to get through this sensation and this sensation in order to fully be present in it. But then eventually you're riding it and you're not having to consider as much about avoiding anything because it's flowing.
That flow state is really phenomenal because I've not been quite back in that flow state since, because when I lied to myself, I was in flow, amazing flow, and I was going to go off to America and do shit and do public speaking. I looked to my parents and I was like, I can't go to America. They'll be divorced by the time I come back, and all the money was supposed to make them buy a big house and whatever. It's just, what's the point? So I had to then spend 3 years teaching my parents. I've not been back in that flow state since, but flow state for me was I would think about something, it would happen, and then something would happen as a result of that, which would trigger off a thought, and I think about that thought, and that thought's already connected in that flow state. So then that would happen, and then that would happen. I need to see this person, and that would be the next stage, because we're all connected on that like path towards north. It's like north, south, east, and west. Everything's north. If you go north, all your thoughts will be north, and so they'll just be north, north, north. Whereas if you're east and thinking north, you have to turn around to north, and then if you go back to east, you're thinking of a north thing. It's not going to happen in flow. It's going to take time. But when you are constantly going down a path where all thoughts are related to that path, you just flow. It's like having a BB gun and shooting, bang, 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 bang. All the tins fall off the side. Just people. I remember once I was in my friend's garden with a BB gun. My left hand, I'm right-handed, but my left hand, I just used his gun and I shot the can, and it came off straight away. He's like, "How did you do that?" It's just like throwing darts. Got the dartboard in the middle every time. I remember playing pool once, snooker pool, and I was just randomly stopping where the ball stopped, put my cue down, one strike, bang, three balls went in. I wouldn't try and aim, wouldn't whatever, wouldn't focus on it. When I just waited for the ball to stop, as soon as it stopped, I just hit it anywhere, balls went in. Bang, 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 all the balls went in. And my friend was just like, he hasn't even potted one, and I've just put the whole table in like 3 hits. It was amazing because that was all to do with energy. He would he would be facing me, facing the ball. I would always stand the opposite. It's almost like the sun, the earth, the moon. I would always stand the opposite of him, where the ball was, where he was facing, and then observe him. And he would never hit it in. By observing him, he would never get it in the socket. I was controlling the table, controlling his mindset. And then every time the ball stopped, I would pivot around like the sun. So if it went left, I would sort of go right. And if it would go right, I'd go left. I was pivoting. And I'd hit the ball, bang, they would all go in. Phenomenal shit. I used to go to the casino. I used to just say, like, it's going to come in now. And I put the money on and it would come in. I said to my friend, it's going to come in now, and it would come in. I'd say, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet, now. So the dealer is observing. He unconsciously knows that when the ball crosses that number, it's going to land around here. It's pretty accurate. You can kind of predict patterns if you know how to predict. So through dealing all the time, he observes the fact that it's going at a certain speed, the wheel's going at this speed, it's going to hit zero, for example. I was so in tune that I knew when a dealer had observed the fact that the number was going to come in, and I put the money down, and it was happen all the time. And I remember once I walked out the casino, I said, zero's just come in. I walked back to the table, zero's come in. I trusted my gut so much that the energies around me were making up my own thoughts. So if he was predicting that it was going to come in, it would come in. And if I walked out the casino and it came in, he observed that, I tuned in. I became the tuning fork, as you said, the antenna to every single frequency around me. And yeah, people would next be on the casino. He's put a pound on zero. He's coming like two, 3 times in a row. He's just wasting 50 quid. No, 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 wasting it. There's me just sitting there, pound on zero, being patient, knowing it's going to come in. Bang, came in. Bang, came in. Bang, came in. And I was out in half an hour with 100 quid. And there's guys next to me just spreading it out on the table. It doesn't ever happen. So it's that focusing on one thing, sticking to it, believing it's going to happen, and it will. Being patient enough that it's going to happen. People just want to make money quick. They shove all the money on, expect it to come in. They don't. People thought I had powers. I did have powers. I was speaking to grandma at that point, and she'd be like, "Don't put it down yet. Don't put it down. Not yet." I said, "Shall I put it down now?" Nope, not yet. Now. It will come in.
Amazing.
And I'd be like, "Thanks, grandma."
Yeah. It's interesting too when you mentioned the games, because I can think, if somebody played with me this one time, they might be like, "Oh, she's really good," and another person might be like, "Oh, she's horrible." Just once, because sometimes if you're playing with someone that had a pool table their whole life, you might not even have a chance to hit a ball, but it's my own state. My own state will dictate, oh, I'm just going to keep going. Oh, it's right there. And it's not allowing it. And it's a game too. Like I've noticed with someone's observation of me, can I still maintain? And that's been a game with me with cameras. The moment I know something's being recorded, I'll notice a shift back. And that's something I'm trying to train out, because I know I can be of greater service to the world if I can step through that, because of what I know comes out when I'm in flow and when I find there. And if I can do it without a camera, then it's a very fascinating journey to be able to access it with one.
Yeah, and it's just a perception, a camera. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you could be yourself talking now and no one's there. You put a camera there. It's a fact that, or the awareness that you are being observed or going to be observed changes your reality. Now, you know about quantum physics, right? You observe a
Mm-hmm.
particle, it becomes a wave. Well, as soon as you observe, the universe knows when you're observing. So you observe yourself becoming aware that that person's looking. And it's just the camera. Even if you're tricked and told that you're live and you're not live, the camera's not even turned on. You've now acted differently as if that person's looking, but no one's looking. So therefore, it's the belief in your mindset that someone's looking or they're not. Like, you put a camera there, millions are watching on TV around the world, but you can't see them. If there's no cameraman, he's not looking either. It's just the camera. And you're never going to see these people. You're never going to know who they are. It's in our heads. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm just myself all the time. Put the camera there or not, it's no different to being in a pub talking like I do to loads of people, and the negative ones fucking off, and the positive ones are like, God, you're very smart and stuff. Put the camera there, it's no different. It's just rather than 10 people in the pub, 7 fuck off. In terms of a million, 700,000 people fuck off, and you're left with 300,000 people. But it's a perception in the mindset of how you react when that camera's on. It's like when you, as I said, when Grandma said, go speak to that girl, get a number, it wasn't me being judged. It was like a game. Whereas if I just said, oh, she's really hot, I want to take her for a drink, I'd be all nervous and shy. My heart would pound and I'd kind of talk myself out of it. But the outcome's the same. She's just as nervous. You're still good looking. She'll still speak to you. But when Grandma said it, it was almost like it's a game. Like it wasn't me. It's like
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't me she was judging. It was all kind of a law of average that out of 10 girls, you might get 3 persons' numbers. But again, it was all in my head because the outcome's the same. Call it grammar, call it whatever. It's still the same thing. It's perception in our heads. And we rule ourselves out of things based on patterns and beliefs that simply don't exist. And we never get there. Like people spend their time writing songs, singing to the mirror. They never get on that stage. And the longer you take to get on stage, the more nervous you're going to get. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the longer you want to ask that girl to go out for a drink, the more nervous you are that you're not going to ask her out. She's going to be with someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the an interesting piece to, our thoughts do create our reality, but if you just spend forever in the thoughts, the reality is going to be shifting with or without you.
Yeah.
So we
Do you,
it's
do you
a
want to go on?
I was just gonna say it is a game, and I think that that's the best way for me to perceive it, and still be fascinated when even perceiving that, watching the dynamic within myself. Because sometimes I say my human, like this is my human. I've got to go pee my human, or I've got to go, oh, the human, like, because there's that, like, even with so the experience of nearly dying, there was actually trauma that I had to work through, even though there was another part of me like, I'm good. Like I was laughing, or I would be fine, but there's this other part that's like, okay, I think that was maybe there were some things in there that in your system that need to work. Like some of that was a little harder on you than you thought. Um, and so that was a really fascinating thing to have a separate separate experience of like this aspect of myself was requiring a different type of attention than other aspects of myself and my perception of self.
Yeah, like I used to imagine how the outcome would play out in my head, so much so that I felt like it had already happened, that I would never actually do anything. It's almost like visioning your boat and your big house, and I hadn't got any money, I hadn't got a pound to my name. But it's like I didn't need to go out and do it because I had that boat in my head, because the reality is the same. It still feels the same. And like you can speak, you imagine playing that conversation with a job interview person or whatever, or a record label or whatever. And then when you get there, it's different and you're nervous. It's not as it seemed. Like playing out situations in our head, it's one out of millions of situations and possibilities of how it could play out, and it never plays out the way that you visioned it. So now it's just like I don't think about things, I don't play out stuff because it never, ever, ever goes the way you thought about it. And I spent hours thinking about something, hours, just to kind of give myself a comfort of, okay, what if he says this happens? Didn't say any of it. Wasted my time. I wasted 2 hours before talking nonsense. So yeah, the outcome is never the same. And when you observe it, you change it anyway. So if you don't observe it, it's different to what you're thinking. And as soon as you observe it, it changes. So again, it's about just flowing and just getting on with it, like jumping in the ocean and swimming. And there's no such thing as learning to swim because somebody else teaching you had to learn at some point, and you can't be taught because they're observing you. So you are swimming differently when that coach is looking at you like a therapy person. She's getting paid every time she's there. She's observing you. So she wants you to heal, but she also knows that the more she teaches you, she's not going to get a paycheck eventually in time. So again, she's focusing on you, hoping that you kind of need her next time at the same time she's helping you. Same as driving instructors. You, I was being observed by the driving instructor that I was so nervous to drive. And then as soon as my dad taught me and I was in control, I was just perfect. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that he was observing me changed me, how I was.
Mm-hmm.
Observation changes everything. Literally, even if it's in your head and you believe someone's looking at you through that camera, it
Yeah.
changes everything. And then you realize if it's all in my head anyway, then I can just turn it off.
Yeah. That's the goal here. I've observed what it takes sometimes to get out of my way is to observe that self that isn't getting out of the way. To just embrace that aspect at first, because that's just becoming very present with it. So to be as you are, even if that's, hey, I'm not finding a flow at the moment because my flow seems to pause on a sort of pre-programmed system of self-observation, but is really just an old way of attempting to control what is not controllable. So if I just sort of begin to say, hey, it's okay, I understand that sometimes still when you're being observed, you still have little old sensations of things from your past come in, and you think that the relevance of the magnetism of the emotion of it gives it some sort of credence into your current behavior and the current way you're speaking. However, that's not actually what needs to play out right now, because it's only there because you've continued to carry it into the now with that energy. And if I flow past that and say, hey, I observe you, it's all good, let's keep going, let's see where we go for here.
I've got I've got I've got something for you to try out. Maybe you've already done it, right? But or anyone listening. Okay, when you observe someone, you essentially control their mind. So my mum always checks candles before she goes out, and once I just observed her and that candle, and that she would forget as she was walking past the room, and she would normally check and blow it out. I observed her, like you're not going to look at that candle, and then we left the house. Obviously, I blew it out, and I said, "Mum, did you blow out that candle?" And she didn't. For the first time ever, she'd left the candle on. Like a woman is in control, who knows everything and everything. She left the candle. I said, "Don't worry, I blew it out." The fact was, I controlled that outcome. If you have a boss, for example, you can control his mind. So you leave the office. If you want him to leave his car keys or his phone or his bag or her bag, if you want them to forget important paperwork, you essentially take their phone, take their keys, take the paperwork that you know they have forgotten. You say, "I'm just going to go to the toilet quickly." Okay, so you go back in, you get the phone, the paperwork, the keys, whatever they've left, and then he goes, "Shit, I've forgotten this." Don't worry, I've got it. You get a promotion. Think about it. You can literally get your boss to promote you via your mind because you can make things happen. You can, somebody's going to call back. You can put out into the universe, "Don't call back until tomorrow." For example, it's a big client deal, or you need to forget to lock up. So you lock up. It shows you're a responsible person because the boss forgot to lock up. So it's, you know what? I'll make you manager and you can lock up. Thank you. So he forgot his keys because you observed him forgetting his keys. He now thinks, wow, you've given me my phone, my keys, my. What is. I need. No problem. You've literally created that outcome. So I was going to say, in your house right now or whatever, observe something, study people. Think, okay, they always check the door at night time, or they always put their pasta in the cupboard. They always put their shoes in a certain order. Just look around your house, you'll see a pattern. Observe that pattern, and then you'll come back the next day and their bottle of water still on the side, and they normally put it in the dishwasher, or they left the fridge open or whatever, or they left the light on. If you observe them and they always turn the lights off, observe them, they leave the light on, or observe the fact that they always put their cup in the dishwasher, they'll leave it out. Just observe it. It's the same as the candle thing. I observed my mum. She never always blows out the candles, but she didn't. Have some fun with it.
All right. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's always something I think I love doing. I think that there's like a benefit to being like without technology some when you're younger, because you are given so much time to observe. But there's also this benefit to being able to access concepts and experiences and ideas that might otherwise get sort of muted or not cultured into growing into something else in the environment you're in that you might find online. So there's a dual balance that I think in my mind I perceive as being a positive influence on both end for somebody to develop their own mind.
Okay, so shall we end it there, or anything else you
Sure.
want to particularly talk about?
I feel good. It was lovely to talk to you.
Feel content? Nothing else you want to speak about?
There's a million things I can't speak about, but I feel fine. I don't feel a need.
Okay, quickly plug anything you want to plug, any websites, projects, social media links, whatever.
Sure. Right now, you can find me on Instagram at zenobia.zen. It's ZENOBIA.ZEN. And Facebook, it's Zenobia Zen Official is the website there. Right now, because I've shifted from all the music and the name and everything I used to go by, I've just started shifting everything to Zenobia Official. So within the week, I'll have videos up and things under that name. But right now, you're watching the shift happen. So.
Okay, right, I'm just going to press stop and I'll say goodbye. So wait there, okay?